We're looking at Joe Biden almost breaking records for a disapproval rating. We've also had half a dozen, almost five, I think, interest rate increases, exacerbating a housing crisis in this country. I don't know what we should start with. Why don't we just start with the most recent and then go backwards, because this also has to do with going forward. Donald Trump booted off the ballot in Colorado. That decision has been stayed until January 4th, or it will be further stayed until the Supreme Court looks at it. What's your perspective on that? I mean, aside from the fact that I think we all know the Supreme Court is going to overturn this case, do you think they should? I mean, do you think some people out there say it should be 9-0 in terms of a ruling? What is your perspective on that?
Well, it's actually tougher than I thought it would be, because to me, when I first read about this, there was an op-ed written by Professor Lawrence Tribe and former, appellate court judge Michael Luttig, a liberal and a conservative, both very, highly regarded, suggesting that this was not just suggesting, asserting that this was, a proper reading of the 14th Amendment and that Trump should be barred from running for office again. And when I read that, I thought, well, that makes sense to me. Seems perfectly obvious. And to me, I don't think there's any question that he was involved and participated in the insurrection on January 6th. In fact, he incited it and was basically one of the architects of the insurrection. So, I don't, on the merits of it, I can't see how anybody could read it otherwise, that he isn't disqualified the same way anyone would be if they, didn't meet the requirements. And this, obviously, he doesn't meet the requirements. Having said that, though, I am persuaded by certain people that I respect, like, Steve Vladeck, law professor from Texas. I mean, there are a number of them who said, maybe not. There are a number of unsettled issues regarding this. There are a number of off-ramps that are available to the Supreme Court to take that actually aren't egregious, and they possibly could do it. I don't know about 9-0. That seems like a bit much. But nonetheless, I'm persuaded that it's not as much of a slam dunk as I had thought. And on the political side, there are a number of ways to, that I think that that Trump should be barred from office. That being one of them, I think a convicted felon, which he may very well be by the time the election comes along next year. I don't think convicted felons should probably be allowed. They can't even vote, so how can he be president? And finally, hopefully, the voters will turn him out. But the ramifications of the court deciding to take him off the ballot, it's really kind of unknowable. And I got to be honest, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of us always having to worry about, oh no, what are the Trump people going to do? They're going to rise up. They're going to be upset. And then what'll happen? It's like every single issue that comes up with him, including the indictments and everything else. It's like, well, we better appease Don, because what happens if he doesn't get his way, then all hell's going to break loose. And I'm kind of tired of that. So, whatever happens with it, I'm fine. I think that it's perfectly legit, and, go for it. If it doesn't work, there are a number of other avenues that we can, hopefully take to take Donald Trump out of the political picture once and for all.
And yeah, I mean, I'm with you. In fact, I think doing this to appease even 50, 60% of the country or 40% of the country, it doesn't matter to me. Ignoring the law to appease a certain amount of people in this respect, I think it is absurd. And frankly, Donald Trump might be the best candidate for Joe Biden to run against, frankly. So it's not, but I do think that, you got to follow the law, and because when you don't, it becomes problematic down the road. I mean, we've seen this many, many times, particularly with abuse of power issues. I don't know if Vladeck pointed out that question of like, there's been no formal assessment as to whether he was an insurrectionist. I have no doubt about it.
Right.
But we've had that formal assessment of individual insurrectionists who've gone to jail. I mean, some people have gone to jail for years and years because of what they did on that day. And so he's never been found guilty of that, which I think is a failure, frankly, on a part of the Department of Justice and this and that. But as the political fallout, I just don't think people would have been upset if Ollie North went to prison for Iran-Contra, but he should have. Maybe people would have been upset if Nixon had gone to jail, but he should have.
Well, they were upset that he didn't win the last election, and they staged an insurrection because of
Exactly.
it. I mean, they're upset. They just get upset. And they'll be upset, by the way, if he loses the election. They'll be upset if he is convicted. They're going to be upset unless they get exactly what they want. And even then, by the way, they're going to be upset anyway, because they're upset. They were upset when Donald Trump won in 2016. I don't know if you remember all the people running around screaming and starting fights and, screaming Donald Trump on airplanes and calling people Hillary bitches. And I mean, they were horrible. I wrote a big piece about it. It's like, it's not enough for them to win. They need to, just grind it, their enemies to dust in any case. So, there's no margin in trying to appease these people because they're unappeasable. So, you just go with try to do the right thing. Now, having said that, though, I don't know if this court, I have a theory, or not. It's not really a theory. A possibility. I've written about a possibility. There are a number of ways this could go. This case, I think the likely case is that they're going to overturn it. I agree with you for all those reasons, and there are so many logical off ramps for them to take, so that they don't have to make the tough decision on this one. And there are other ones that are out there, and of course, there's this one with Trump and immunity,
Right.
and that is. I mean, to me, that's the dicey one and maybe the most important, because if they grant a president immunity from anything he does during office, during his time in office, his or her time in office, and then they're immune thereafter, we basically have, a get out of jail free card for anything. And that's absolutely insane. And especially since we've had demonstrated now over and over again that impeachment is a very, very it's a useless, sort of operation in a time of highly polarized two parties. So it's not going to work. And so if there's no criminal, liability for anybody, then we have a real problem. So hopefully they don't do that. But then there's this other case which applies to what you were talking about, all these people who've gone to jail. This is the Fisher case. One of the people who've been convicted of obstructing an official proceeding is one of the charges, and there have been hundreds of people convicted of that. The Supreme Court's taken that up, and I have a sneaking suspicion they're going to use that either to delay or, to put a stay on the January 6th case, the special prosecutor Jack Smith's case, and say, well, I think this went over, and delay that case beyond the point where it would be reasonable to hold the trial, perhaps until after the election.
Right.
Or they're going to go ahead and decide it and say that this doesn't apply, that the law was misapplied in all those cases. And two of Donald Trump's charges are on those same charges. So those would be withdrawn completely. And that would leave Jack Smith with a couple of other charges, fraud against the United States